Hello friends, I welcome you all for the quick revision batch of CA final, and the subject is strategic cost management and performance evaluation. Friends, myself CA Rakesh Agrawal, a gold medalist in cost and management accounting, and I am teaching the subject of costing from now last 30 years or so. Important instructions before we go ahead with this quick revision batch. This batch is specially designed for the students of my regular batch. Please mind it well. If you have studied with me in the regular batch, either in live batch or through video lectures already, then this quick revision batch will be more useful to you. Or you should have covered the syllabus at least on your own once or with some other faculty. Then there is a point in studying this. If you are directly studying this subject for the first time through quick revision batch, then I think your decision has gone wrong. You won't be able to understand much. So after studying regularly, then there is a point in revising the subject. So I am making it very clear to you in the very beginning. Now, as it is a quick revision batch, please don't waste your time in writing. Don't waste your time in writing, but focus your attention only on revising. And the printed notes of your regular batch already contains everything. So regular batch notes contains everything. I am not going to teach you anything new. The purpose here is to only revise through important points. Now we will do the revision in the same sequence, my dear friends, in the same sequence in which I taught you this subject in the regular batch. So sequence same will be maintained. Now the brief plan of this quick revision is, friends, I am planning to touch upon the important concepts only in this quick revision batch. The purpose is revision. I don't intend, please remember, I do not intend to solve questions or case studies here in this batch. For that purpose, you may prefer my regular batch videos and not this one. It is just for quick revision of concepts. At the most, you may keep a rough notebook, a pen and a calculator with you. You may need it at few places. So just keep it handy with you if you want to take down any point or sometimes do some calculations through an example. So let's get set and start this journey. So I'm starting with chapter 6 naturally, as I told you, because this is the chapter with which we started in our regular batch, that is decision making. This is the basic chapter which connects most of the other chapters in our syllabus, and therefore I generally discuss chapter 6 first because it has got a connection with all other chapters. Now because the CA final syllabus is mainly oriented towards business decision making also, your main focus area is also decision making, main focus area of the entire syllabus, and therefore this chapter according to me is better to begin with. This chapter is also called as marginal costing, CVP analysis or BEP analysis. So people call it by different names. Marginal costing, CVP analysis, BEP analysis, all are different names, but the purpose of all this is business decision making. So all this means one and the same thing in your academic interest. Let's revise the basic concepts and formulae first. Today I'll try to revise some basic concepts so that you can you'll find the remaining discussion little easier. I'll start with the word cost quickly. Actually, this is intermediate syllabus, but I'll start with the word cost. Cost may be defined as the monetary value, money value of all sacrifices made to achieve an objective. See, we express cost in money value. We always count the cost in rupees, let us say. So it's monetary value. Monetary value of what? Of all sacrifices which we have made. I'll discuss those sacrifices. But sacrifices made to achieve an objective. Now objectives could be different. Like your objective is to become chartered accountant. And to become a chartered accountant, whatever sacrifices you are making in your life, if you convert all these sacrifices into its money value, you will get a cost of becoming CA. But from business perspective, the objective is to produce goods and to provide services. To produce and sell the goods naturally. So from business point of view, our objectives are, one is to produce and sell goods, and second is to provide services. Now, in order to produce and sell these goods, whatever sacrifices you make, if you make a list of these sacrifices, convert them into its money value and add them together, you will get the cost of producing and selling the goods. Similarly, you will get the cost of providing the services for service industry. So we are talking about mainly manufacturing industry and service industry. Now, what is this sacrifices which we have mentioned? These sacrifices are popularly called as elements of cost, and these sacrifices are of three types. Now, mainly our focus will be on manufacture and sale of goods. Means majoritarily I will be giving you the example of manufacturing industry. So the sacrifices done to manufacture the goods are of three types: material, labor, and expenses. These three are known as three elements of cost. These three are popularly called as three elements of cost. That is, in the definition, they are called as sacrifices made to achieve an objective. Now, some of you may get surprised here. Some of you may say that we have studied the three elements of cost as material, labor, and overheads. Correct? This is what you may feel. So, I will come back to overheads little later. Technically, the three sacrifices are material, labor, and expenses. Now, anything tangible which gets consumed in the process of manufacture, anything which is tangible getting consumed in the process of manufacture, its money value will be called as material cost. Physical, tangible, getting consumed in the process of manufacture is material cost. All human efforts, that is employees, their salaries, wages, whatever expenses you make on employees, right? So to hire the human efforts or human labor, whatever expenses you make on them is called labor cost, that is employee cost or manpower cost. And remaining all, whatever is not covered in material and labor will get covered in expenses. So third sacrifice or element of cost is expenses, like your electricity bill you pay, depreciation of plant and machinery, and rest of the things, royalty paid. Other than material and labor, everything gets clubbed into expenses. Rent paid for the premises will come into expenses. So these are known as three elements of cost: material cost, labor cost, and expenses. And that is how you get the total cost. It means total cost gets divided in three parts: material, labor, expenses. Now each of these three costs or elements of cost will divide into two parts, like direct material, indirect material. So material cost will get divided in two parts, direct and indirect. Similarly, all cost will get divided in two parts, like direct labor, direct expense, indirect expense, and so on. Now this is the basic discussion of intermediate. If you have not studied it carefully at that stage, at intermediate stage, try to understand now. How do we classify this material cost in two parts? How should we call direct material and how should we call it as indirect material? See, there has to be a direct relationship of the cost with cost object. Cost object means the goods which you are manufacturing. In our example, let us assume manufacturing industry. We are interested in manufacturing the goods. So the goods which you are going to manufacture and sell is called cost object. If there is one-to-one relationship of that material cost with that cost object, it means you can easily identify that this cost is incurred on this cost object. If there is a direct relationship between the two, it is called direct material cost. And there are other materials which are getting consumed in the process of manufacture, but they don't form the part of that finished goods or output. But so many other materials also gets consumed in the process of manufacture, which is very difficult to identify that this much material has gone in this product, in producing this product. Then all such materials will be called as indirect material cost when there is no one-to-one relationship. If there is one-to-one relationship between cost and cost object is the product or service which you are providing to the customer. If there is one-to-one relationship, then it is direct material. If there is no one-to-one relationship but cost is incurred, then it will be called as indirect material cost. Like while manufacturing the furniture, whatever is the plywood, Sanmaika, Fevicol getting consumed, which you can identify easily that this much must have been consumed to manufacture one unit, that is direct material. And all other miscellaneous items required which cannot be identified on one-to-one basis is indirect material. Similarly, for labor cost, we'll go for direct and indirect labor cost classification. So labor cost will get divided in two parts, direct and indirect. The employee cost which you can attribute with each cost object means where you can with reasonable certainty say that this much human efforts has gone for manufacture of this one product. Then that employee cost you can treat it as direct labor cost. For example, either you are making payment to the worker on the basis of, let us say, 100 rupees per unit produced. So for each unit produced, you have to pay 100 rupees to the labor. This will be a direct labor cost. Or if you are going to make them payment on time basis, that let us say you are going to pay them at the rate of 200 rupees per hour. 200 rupees per hour is your wage rate. And with reasonable certainty, you can say that one worker can produce 2 units in 1 hour. One worker is expected to normally produce 2 units in 1 hour on an average, because different workers will have different efficiency. But your experience says that generally in 1 hour, a worker produces 2 units. It means you will pay 200 rupees for 1 hour, but you will get 2 units of output. Means in 1 hour you will get 2 units, that is in 200 rupees you will get 200 units of output from a worker. So you can reasonably say that rupees 100 per unit is the direct labor cost. Then what is indirect labor then? You must be paying the salary of a supervisor who is giving instruction to the workers and getting the work done, who is maintaining their records, attendance record, granting them the leave, allowing them to work overtime and so on. There might be a production manager who is in charge of the entire factory, a factory manager. Now these are also employees, they are also paid salaries and wages, but their salaries and wages you cannot correlate with each unit produced. It's very difficult. You cannot find a perfect correlation between output produced and the salary of supervisor or salary of production manager. Therefore, their salaries and wages will go in the category of indirect labor. This is the way you can classify. If you take my example, if suppose I have been paid on the basis of every student which I have taught. So if my labor or my remuneration is based directly on the basis of number of students, my remuneration to the academy will be direct labor cost. But there might be office staff, right, sales staff, accountant and other many people, right, other support staff in the office who are not teaching you directly, but they are helping us in carrying out other activities. Their salaries and wages will go to indirect labor cost. Similarly, expenses. Those expenses which is neither material nor labor, which you can correlate one-to-one with cost object, will be called as direct expense. Like you are paying royalty on each unit produced. So that royalty payable on each unit of output can be called as one of the examples of direct expenses. But majority of the expenses tends to be indirect in nature. Majority of the expenses tends to be indirect in nature. Let it be light, electricity expenses, rent, depreciation of assets or machineries. Majority of them are indirect. Now all these direct expenses together, that is direct material, direct labor plus direct expense together, is called as prime cost. So you can say prime cost is the direct cost, simply speaking. And all indirect costs together, indirect material plus indirect labor plus indirect expenses, is called as overheads. So prime cost is a direct cost, right? And overheads is nothing but an indirect cost. You may say overheads is also common cost. Indirect cost means common because it is commonly incurred for so many units. There is no one-to-one correlationship. So I am using another word now. Prime cost is a specific cost. Specific cost, and overheads can be called as common cost, right? Or prime cost is a direct cost, overheads is an indirect cost, whatever way you understand. This is what you have already studied in intermediate. Now, as there are very few items of direct expenses, these items are very, very rare. Which one? Direct expenses. Very few in real life. Therefore, what people have done, they have deleted this direct expenses on majority of the occasions. So what people say directly? People say material plus labor is prime cost. This is the way people utter the word. Material plus labor is prime cost. My dear friends, when they say material, it is direct material. When they say labor, it is direct labor. So it is direct material plus direct labor is prime cost. And prime cost plus overheads will become your total cost. So these are how three elements of cost are called as material, labor and overheads. So in practical life, three elements of cost are material, labor, which means direct material and direct labor. Please remember, because indirect has gone in overheads. Indirect material, indirect labor has gone into overheads. So practical three elements of cost are material, labor, overheads. Theoretically, three elements of cost are material, labor and expenses. That is how it goes. Now friends, this overheads, that is indirect cost, gets further classified. into three parts for cost sheet purpose. So overheads are further divided into three parts. One is factory overheads. All of you are aware of this. I'm just revising quickly. Second is administration overheads. And third one is selling and distribution overheads. These are the three classification of overheads. Now, first of all, overheads means an indirect cost. Don't forget that, which may consist of indirect material, indirect labor, and indirect expenses. So they are clubbed. Then they are again divided in three parts depending upon the purpose which they serve. If this overheads cost, that is indirect cost, serves the purpose of manufacturing activity, then it is treated as factory overheads. If these overheads serve the purpose of administration activity, then it is called as administration overheads. And if these overheads serve the purpose of selling and distribution activity, then it is called selling and distribution overheads. Now, factory overheads has got some more names. Like factory overheads is also known as works overheads, also known as production overheads, and also known as manufacturing overheads. So factory overheads is called by these different names: works overheads, production overheads, manufacturing overheads, and factory overheads. All means one and the same. Administration overheads are also known as office overheads. And then you get selling and distribution overheads. Really speaking, selling and distribution are two different overheads, but they are generally clubbed into one in costing. Basically, selling expenses or overheads are those which are incurred to generate the demand, and distribution expenses or overheads are those which are incurred to satisfy the demand. So selling is to generate the demand, distribution is to satisfy the demand. These are the three popular classifications of overheads for cost sheet purpose. Just to give an example, like depreciation of fixed asset. Depreciation of fixed asset is an indirect expense. Now, where this depreciation will get classified? See, if it is a depreciation of plant and machinery, it will go to factory overheads. If it is a depreciation of office furniture, office computer, right, and office ACs, then it will go to administration overheads. If it is a depreciation of delivery van, then it will go to distribution overheads. Similarly, rent of factory building will go to factory overheads. Rent of administration building will go to administration overheads. Rent of sales office will go to selling overheads, and so on. So this is the way you have to classify it. All this is what belongs to your intermediate, my dear friends. Now, with this classification of overheads, we will go ahead and we will prepare a simple cost sheet. Again, intermediate topic, simple cost sheet format to club three items of direct cost and three classification of overheads. Particulars rupees. First, we'll take direct material, we'll add a direct labor to it, we'll add a direct expense to it, and all these three direct costs together will get prime cost. In prime cost, we'll first add factory overheads. Mind it well, factory overheads are first added to get factory cost. In factory cost, we add administration overheads and we get cost of production. In cost of production, we add selling and distribution overheads and we get cost of sales. This is simple cost sheet format. In cost of sales, we will add a profit or we'll deduct the loss to get the sales. So why I discuss this? This is something which you have dealt with in intermediate. Now this cost sheet we will reconvert for marginal costing purpose, because for marginal costing we will require slightly different classification of cost. So now we move to that marginal costing or decision making chapter. First of all, marginal costing is a technique used for managerial decision making. This technique recognizes only two types of cost, that is variable cost and fixed cost. You may say it is a drawback of this technique also, because marginal costing technique says that all costs are divisible only in two parts. Either it should be variable or fixed. Now, if there is a semi-variable cost, then what can be done? If there is a semi-variable cost, then it needs to be subdivided into a variable cost portion and fixed cost portion separately. And you will include the variable portion in variable cost and fixed portion in fixed cost. So at the end of the day, in marginal costing, you will have only two costs left, variable and fixed cost. Now, how to divide this cost? That is the reason I have revised the cost sheet. For cost sheet purpose, we had divided the total cost in two parts, if you remember. That was prime cost and overheads. Prime cost was direct material plus direct labor plus direct expense. Overheads was indirect material, indirect labor and indirect expense for cost sheet purpose. Now, prime cost being a direct cost which is directly associated with the cost object, one-to-one association is there. Therefore, prime cost by default is variable cost. Prime cost by default is variable cost. So in the question, they'll give you the data in a cost sheet format. So from that cost sheet, whenever you pick up the item like direct material, direct labor, direct expense, treat it as prime cost by default. And prime cost means variable cost. Now overheads, wherever it is given in the cost sheet, overheads could be factory overheads or administration overheads or selling and distribution overheads or all the three. You have to reclassify these overheads in two parts, that is variable overheads and fixed overheads. Mind it well. Like factory overheads, you'll have to reclassify into variable factory overheads and fixed factory overheads. Administration overheads, you'll have to reclassify into variable administration overheads and fixed administration overheads. Selling overheads also you have to classify into variable selling and fixed selling overheads. So we want the overheads to be classified finally in two parts, variable and fixed. And as I said, if there is a semi-variable overheads, distribute between variable and fixed portion. Once you do this, then your prime cost plus variable overheads will become your variable cost. Because prime cost by default is variable and out of overheads you have taken variable. So these two together, prime cost plus variable overheads will become your variable cost because we want this cost for marginal costing. And fixed overheads itself will mean fixed cost. So either I utter a word fixed cost or fixed overheads, both means one and the same. So fixed overheads and fixed cost is same. But variable cost is prime cost plus variable overheads. Actually in quick revision batch I should not have revised all this. But if anybody has missed it out, right, first make your basics right, because without the basics you will not understand further. That is the reason I have thought of revising this also in quick revision batch. So this is your division of cost. So cost sheet converted into the suitable format for marginal costing purpose we have done now. Now let us check the behavior of cost, means behavior of variable cost and behavior of fixed cost. And this behavior of cost itself is known as a CVP analysis. Actually CVP stands for cost, volume, profit analysis. Cost, volume, profit analysis, that is CVP analysis, is nothing but judging the behavior of cost. So I'll tell you why it is so. When you judge the behavior of cost and profit due to change in volume of production, when you try to understand the behavior of cost and profit due to change in volume, production volume, then that type of analysis is known as CVP analysis. So let's go. I'll take production, I'll take variable cost at one place and fixed cost at another place, because we have to study the behavior of variable and fixed cost vis-a-vis change in production. Now variable cost I'll take two types. One is per unit variable cost, another is total variable cost. I repeat, I'll take two types of variable cost, per unit and total. Fixed cost also I will take two types, per unit and total. So in all I have taken four types of cost now, two types of variable cost, two types of fixed cost, and we'll study the behavior of these costs with change in production. Now if I increase the production, means assume that earlier my production was 10,000 units, now it has become 15,000 units. If my production increases, what will happen to variable cost per unit? Think over, with increase in production, how the variable cost per unit will behave. I think you are correct. Variable cost per unit remains constant. If by mistake you have said it will increase, it is wrong. Variable cost per unit remains constant. Then what will increase is total variable cost. Total variable cost increases with increase in production, but cost of one unit remains constant. This is the fundamental assumption of marginal costing. If to manufacture this pen, my variable cost per unit is 100, then for one unit it will remain 100. This is generally the assumption of marginal costing, unless something else is mentioned. If I produce 2 units, then 100 into 2, 200 rupees. If I produce 5 units, then 100 per unit into 5, 500 will be the total variable cost. So total variable cost increases with increase in production, but per unit variable cost remains constant. Now with increase in production, what will happen to fixed cost per unit? Fixed cost per unit I am saying. My dear friends, fixed cost per unit decreases with increase in production. Decreases with increase in production, you know it. And total fixed cost remains constant. Total fixed cost remains constant. Those who are still confused, though it's a quick revision batch. Suppose factory rent per annum is fixed cost. So total factory rent is constant for the whole year irrespective of number of units produced. Now let us say this total factory rent is 10 lakh rupees for convenience. 10 lakh rupees is the total rent. If I am manufacturing 1 lakh units in a year, then total rent at 10 lakh divided by 1 lakh units, the per unit cost, fixed cost will become rupees 10. Per unit fixed cost will become rupees 10. Are you getting it? Now, next year I produce 2 lakh units in 1 year. 2 lakh units. But my total rent, which is a fixed cost, total rent will still remain 10 lakh. But now 10 lakh rent divided by 2 lakh units produced. My per unit cost will become 5 rupees. Earlier it was 10 rupees. Now it has become 5 rupees. Why? Because my production has increased from 1 lakh units to 2 lakh units. So you will notice with increase in production, fixed cost per unit will decrease because the total burden of fixed cost is shared by more number of units. Similarly, with a decrease in production, variable cost per unit will remain constant. Total variable cost will decrease, but per unit fixed cost will increase with decrease in production, and total fixed cost will remain constant. So there are two constants in marginal costing, my dear friend. Variable cost per unit is constant and total fixed cost is constant. On the contrary, I would say that to solve every question of marginal costing, first you need to find out these two constants. So from given data, find out these two constants, that is variable cost per unit and total fixed cost, and then start solving the question. This behavior of cost with increase or decrease in production is called CVP analysis. That is cost volume profit analysis, behavior of cost and profit due to change in volume. Now, golden formula of marginal costing, which all of you are aware, is sales minus variable cost. This is known as contribution. See, first we divided the variable cost in two parts. Out of the two costs, variable cost is first deducted from sales revenue, and the resultant figure is called as contribution. And then from contribution, available contribution, you deduct the second cost, that is fixed cost, and now you get profit or loss as the case may be. So in first step you deduct the variable cost from sales, resultant figure is contribution, from contribution you deduct fixed cost and you get profit or loss. Profit means plus and loss here means minus. Can I say profit is excess of contribution over fixed cost? Can I say profit is excess of contribution over fixed cost? And can I say loss is excess fixed cost over contribution, that is unrecovered fixed cost? For example, if my sales is 10 lakh, variable cost is 6 lakh, contribution is 4 lakh. And from this contribution 4 lakh, I have deducted fixed cost 3 lakh, my profit will be 1 lakh. 4 lakh contribution minus 3 lakh fixed cost, 1 lakh profit. This profit 1 lakh is excess contribution over fixed cost. Suppose this fixed cost is 5 lakh, then there will be a loss of 1 lakh. So can I say loss is excess fixed cost or unrecovered fixed cost over contribution? That is this sentence. So we can say that excess contribution over fixed cost is profit and excess fixed cost over contribution is loss. Now profit volume ratio, you know it, but still we will revise once. Profit volume ratio, popularly called as PV ratio, is calculated as contribution upon sales into 100. Basically it is contribution to sales ratio. It is contribution to sales ratio, well, popularly called as profit volume ratio. Reason, this contribution is as good as your gross profit. So in marginal costing, contribution is very important, so it is treated as good as profit, though it is similar to gross profit. And this is your sales volume, right? Sales volume. Therefore people might be calling it as profit volume ratio, right? Contribution meaning gross profit and sales means sales volume. That might be the reason why the name has come profit volume ratio. So contribution to sales ratio. Now friends, the sales gets divided in two parts. One part is variable cost, another part is contribution. All of you know this. Sales minus variable cost, you get contribution, or sales minus contribution, you will get variable cost, or variable cost plus contribution, you will get sales. Now I will divide variable cost by sales. So I will get variable cost ratio. How will get it? Variable cost in the numerator, sales in the denominator. So variable cost divided by sales into 100 will get variable cost ratio, and contribution divided by sales into 100 is written already. Contribution divided by sales, we will get PV ratio. Okay, so there are two ratios. Now there is something interesting to study about it. In marginal costing, one more thing is assumed to remain constant unless otherwise mentioned in the question, and that is sales price per unit. Sales price per unit is assumed to remain constant generally. So I am assuming my sales price is 100 per unit for 1 unit. Variable cost is 60 per unit. So contribution will become rupees 40 per unit. So my variable cost ratio will become 60 upon 100, that is 60%, and PV ratio will become 40%, that is 40 upon 100. Now there are two constants in marginal costing. As I said, sales price per unit is also assumed to remain constant, and variable cost per unit remains constant, we have already seen. So sales price minus variable cost, your contribution per unit will automatically remain constant, and therefore your variable cost ratio and PV ratio will also remain constant for that question. I repeat, your variable cost ratio and PV cost ratio will remain constant for that question unless you make changes in the data. And one more thing, variable cost ratio and PV ratio are complementary to each other. It means the total of these two ratios will always be 100%. Always. If variable cost ratio is 70%, PV ratio will be 30%. If PV ratio is 20%, variable cost ratio will be 80%, and so on. So these two will always remain, the total will remain 100%. They are complementary to each other. So I'll just observe, put these observations about profit volume ratio. As I said, PV ratio is influenced by sales price and variable cost. First of all, this ratio will remain constant unless you change the sales price and unless you change the variable cost. If you don't change this, PV ratio will remain same. Now generally sales price per unit and variable cost per unit remains constant in a given question, and hence contribution per unit will also remain constant. Thus this will lead to PV ratio remaining constant, even variable cost ratio remaining constant. PV ratio will change only when there is a change in sales price and variable cost, and PV ratio and variable cost ratio are complementary to each other. That is, the total of these two ratios is always 100%. This we have discussed. Now, variety of business decisions. What we revised quickly till now was little bit of intermediate, elements of cost, cost sheet, and division of cost for marginal costing purpose. Now your mainly CA final syllabus starts, because marginal costing is basically used for business decision making. Now what type of business decisions you may have to take? So this CVP analysis, that is marginal costing technique, is used for a variety of business decisions, like it could be choosing between the two alternatives. So you have two alternatives to do the same thing. You have to choose one of them. This can be done using cost BP concept, that is cost break-even point concept. Then optimum product mix decision using a key factor concept, that is deciding the best production plan, could be another business decision. Then sell or further process decision. If you are getting a product in a process, manufacturing process, that product can be sold now also or can be sold after further processing also. So you can take that type of decision using this technique. Minimum pricing decision. If you want to somehow get the order from the customer, you don't want to lose the customer or want to capture the market, what minimum price you can afford to sell your product at? So that minimum pricing decision you can take using marginal costing technique. Or make or buy decision. For example, you are a vehicle manufacturing company. You want tires to be fitted in your vehicles. Now either you can make the tires on your own or you can buy it ready-made from a tire manufacturing company, that is buy from outside or manufacture a particular component on your own. This type of decision also you can take, etc., etc. Actually, you can take variety of business decisions. I have just narrated few variety of business decisions using the marginal costing technique or CVP technique. We'll be discussing few of them in the due course of time in our quick revision batch also. Now, very important concept in marginal costing is relevant irrelevant cost for decision making. Because in every business decision making question, whenever the question is related to decision making, you will have to see to it that whether the given data in the question, cost data given in the question, is relevant for you or irrelevant from decision making point of view. Please remember, I am not saying whether the money is spent by you or not, cost is incurred or not. I am saying whether cost is relevant or not for decision making. This is very important, and it is common discussion for all decision making questions, all decision making questions. So in majority of business decisions, we make use of relevant cost and we ignore the irrelevant cost for decision making. Therefore, we have to classify them. The cost which influences our decision is relevant. The cost which has an influence or impact on our decision is relevant. And the cost which has no impact on our decision is irrelevant cost. The cost which has no connection on or no impact on decision is irrelevant. Generally, variable costs are relevant, but not always. But 99% cases, in absence of information, variable costs are always relevant, and fixed costs are generally irrelevant for decision making. Now, this is a thumb rule, you can say. In the data, see, we have already discussed that for every marginal costing question, you will split the data in two parts, variable cost and fixed cost. For decision making point of view, generally variable cost is relevant, generally fixed cost is irrelevant. This is a rule of thumb, unless some other data is provided in the question. Now let us see the variety of relevant and irrelevant cost through an example, through a tabular format. This is printed in the regular batch notes. Now let us discuss relevant cost. Future costs are generally relevant. That is, cost which is to be incurred is generally relevant. Reason, whether you will spend that money or not depends upon your decision. If you take a decision, the cost will be incurred. If you don't take a decision, the cost will not be incurred. I am saying the cost which will be incurred in future is generally treated as relevant cost. It also means, if you check the right side, past cost, which is also called as a sunk cost, past cost or sunk cost is generally treated as irrelevant. That is, the money which you have already spent is irrelevant. I generally give the example of your exam fees. You are thinking of appearing for the CA final exam, and you are thinking, should I pay the fees of one group or both the groups? If you have not yet paid the fees, then that fee is relevant for decision making. But suppose you have paid the fees for both the groups already. You have filled the form, paid the fees of both the groups. And now your exam is coming near, and you are trying to change your decision. Though you have paid the fees for both the groups, you are thinking, oh, should I appear only for group 1, or should I appear only for group 2, or should I appear for both the groups next time with better preparation, or as I have paid the fees, should I appear right now? Now, I think under any of these four options, the money which you have already spent on exam fees is gone. Is not going to be refunded to you, neither it is going to get carried forward. So now whatever decision you take now, the fees which you have paid, exam fees which you have already paid, is now a sunk cost, and it will become irrelevant for your decision making, because your decision now is not going to affect that cost has gone. Similarly, avoidable cost, also known as a discretionary cost, is relevant. Avoidable, the cost which you can avoid, means the cost which is as per your discretion. Like, if you want to buy the video lectures of this quick revision batch, it is your decision to buy this or not. It means if you don't buy, you can avoid this cost. And if you buy, you'll have to spend this money. It means the cost is dependent on your decision. So avoidable cost is always a relevant cost. It also means unavoidable cost, which is non-discretionary. There is no discretion, means there is nothing in your hand. Unavoidable cost is always irrelevant. For example, the registration fees paid to institute for registration of CA final, whether that fees has any relevance with joining this quick revision batch or buying these video lectures? No, because whether you buy these video lectures of quick revision batch or you don't buy, in any case you'll have to pay the institute's fee, registration fees and exam fees, which is an unavoidable cost to you, which is not in your hand. It is not discretionary. So that cost is irrelevant for this decision making, whether I should buy the quick revision batch or not. Cost which changes due to decision. The cost which changes due to your decision is relevant, and the cost which remains the same, right, or remains constant irrespective of your decision is irrelevant. Similarly, incremental cost, that is additional cost, is always relevant. It means if you take the decision, that cost will be incurred, then that is additional cost or relevant cost. Non-incremental cost, which is not an additional cost, is always irrelevant. Means by taking a particular decision, you are not going to incur any extra cost. The cost, total cost will remain the same. Just to give you an example, if you have a supervisor in your factory, who is supervising the production, now you have thought of introducing one more product. That product will also be supervised by the same supervisor. But by introducing a new product, you are not going to pay any extra salary to supervisor, because supervisor's monthly salary is fixed. Let us say it is rupees 30,000 per month, which is fixed. So because you have introduced a new product, are you going to pay anything extra to that supervisor? No. So supervision cost is not an incremental cost. Then it is irrelevant. However, as you have introduced one more product, you'll have to spend on designing of that product. You'll have to spend on material cost of that product. You'll have to spend or give payment to your direct labor who is going to work on that product. All this will be incremental cost and which will be relevant. Similarly, specific overheads incurred are relevant, specific to that decision. Like if I produce that new product which I am going to introduce, I am going to incur certain overheads cost. Like I will run the machineries, I'll have to spend extra on power and fuel cost. That will be relevant. So specific overheads for that decision are relevant. And common overheads or general overheads which are absorbed on some suitable basis to that new product are irrelevant. For example, your total factory rent was common, but as you have introduced a new product, you will charge some share of that common factory rent to this new product which you are introducing. Then that absorbed overheads, when you charge some share out of common overheads, it is called overheads absorbed. Overheads applied, right? Overheads charged. These are the words we use, or overheads recovered. If these overheads are charged out of the common share, and the total of the overheads are going to remain same irrespective of your decision, but for accounting purpose you are only charging some suitable share, then such common overheads are irrelevant for decision making. However, specific overheads are relevant for decision making. Friends, I will discuss relevant and irrelevant fixed overheads. See, I earlier said that fixed overheads are generally irrelevant for decision making. I said fixed overheads are generally irrelevant for decision making. That is, fixed cost is generally irrelevant. That is correct. In absence of information in the question, fixed overheads are generally irrelevant. But when these fixed overheads can become relevant? There could be few situations where fixed overheads may become relevant. So let us discuss it. Relevant fixed overheads and irrelevant fixed overheads. Specific fixed overheads incurred for a decision are relevant. General overheads or absorbed fixed overheads are irrelevant. We'll take example also. Avoidable fixed cost and fixed overheads is one and the same. If it is avoidable, it is relevant. If it is unavoidable, then it is irrelevant. If the fixed cost is an additional cost, incremental fixed cost for that particular decision, then it is relevant. And if it is not an incremental cost, means due to a decision you are not incurring any additional fixed cost, then it is irrelevant. Now let's take an example. Depreciation on machinery. This is a short form for machinery. Depreciation on machinery purchased specially for manufacture. Like you want to manufacture a new product, and to manufacture that new product you are going to buy a new machine. Then the depreciation charged on that machine, depreciation you may charge on annual basis, which is fixed cost irrespective of number of units produced. But that depreciation cost is incurred because you are manufacturing a new product, and for that you have purchased a machinery, then it will be relevant cost. And if suppose you already have an existing machine, that existing machine is already used for manufacture of 4 products, and now on same machine you are going to manufacture a 5th product. So by manufacturing the 5th product, you are not going to incur any additional depreciation, but accountant will now divide the total depreciation between 5 products. So the share of that 5th product, the share of depreciation of 5th product will be irrelevant for decision making. Though it may be of some use for accounting, but not relevant for decision making, because whether you produce that 5th product or not, the total amount of depreciation is going to remain same. Then it will be irrelevant. But you are specially buying a machine for that product, then depreciation will be relevant. Irrelevant cost. This I think I have already explained. Proportionate factory rent charged to the product. As I said, a total rent of the factory is, let us say, 10 lakh. Total rent of the factory is, let us say, 10 lakh. And at present you are producing 4 variety of products in the factory. So the rent is apportioned between 4 products. Now you have introduced a 5th product, or you want to introduce a 5th product. So accountant will now share the rent of the factory between 5 products. Whatever share the accountant has given to the 5th product is irrelevant fixed cost, irrelevant for decision making, because you are not going to spend any extra rent because you are manufacturing the 5th product. Even if you don't manufacture the 5th product, the total rent of 10 lakh is going to remain same. In that case, the fixed cost will become irrelevant. My dear friends, it's a logical concept. Only one point you have to remember for relevant, irrelevant. Because of your decision, you have to spend the money, then it is relevant. And whether you take that decision or don't take the decision, that cost is going to be there, then it is irrelevant for decision making. Now, I'll discuss one more point about relevant and irrelevant cost for material lying in stock. Now, first understand this situation about material lying in stock. Suppose there is some raw material which I had purchased earlier. Say I had purchased 1000 units of raw material for production purpose, and that material I have used on one of the order which I had received from the customer. But on that order I have consumed only 800 units. I have consumed only 800 units of raw material, and I am having a stock of now 200 units of raw material lying in stock. 200 units of raw material, and it was purchased at the rate of 10 per unit, let us say. 10 per unit is my historical cost, at which I had purchased 1000 units, out of which 800 are consumed in one of the orders and 200 units are lying in stock. Now these 200 units which are already lying in my godown at the rate of 10 rupees historical cost, whether it is relevant for decision making or irrelevant for decision making, that is what we have to discuss. Now why relevant, irrelevant? First of all, imagine a situation that these 200 units can be used on some other job now. Some new job I am going to get from a customer. So I am getting another order from some other customer on that order these 200 units can be used. If I wish, I can use this stock of 200 units on that new job. So while calculating the relevant cost of that new job, how much cost should I consider? Now you will say the answer is very plain. Accountant will consider 200 units into 10 rupees. If these 200 units are consumed by the new job, 200 into 10, that is 2000 is the relevant cost. No, that is only for accounting purpose. We are not talking from accounting angle, please remember, we are talking from decision making angle, and that is the major change in intermediate and final syllabus. In intermediate, the stress was on cost accounting. In CA final, the stress is on decision making. So you don't have to think from accountant's perspective, you have to think from decision maker's perspective. So we'll discuss it. First of all, that historical cost or book value, which I said rupees 10 per unit, it is a sunk cost and hence irrelevant. Why it is a sunk cost? Because the material is already lying in stock. Please remember, I am not buying a fresh quantity. If I am going to buy a fresh quantity, then the decision is still in my hand whether to buy or not to buy. I am saying the goods are lying in stock out of previous purchase, and 10 rupees per unit which I have already spent is a sunk cost, and therefore it is irrelevant for taking the decision of accepting the new order now. So historical cost you will ignore as a sunk cost. Now realizable value. Realizable value is sale value. It means that material 200 units lying in the stock at a historical cost of rupees 10. Suppose if I want to sell it in the market now, though it is not my business to sell raw material, but let us say I want to sell that raw material, so I go to the market and try to sell it. Generally I will get a lower price. See, there is an item in which we don't deal with. If you try to sell such item in the market, you won't get good amount. So let us say that sales price of this raw material is rupees 8 per unit. That is called realizable value. This realizable value will be relevant. It will be relevant, but in this situation, when this material has no alternative use. No alternative use. And it is generally assumed that this realizable value is lower than your replacement cost. Replacement cost we will be discussing next. So suppose if I go to the market and I am going to get only 8 rupees and this material is of no use to me other than selling it. Sorry, here I think quantity left was 200 units, not 2000. 200 units are left with me at the rate of rupees 10. That is, value is rupees 2000, historical cost. Now, suppose I am just thinking of selling this material at the rate of rupees 8 into 200 units and I am going to realize 1600. But before selling it in the market, because it has no alternative use, I am getting a new order, new job on which I can use this material. So because I am using the existing raw material on a new job, I will lose an opportunity to earn 1600 rupees by selling it in the market. So this 1600 rupees will be treated as a relevant cost for that new job, provided the material has no alternative use other than selling it. Third one, replacement cost. First of all, replacement cost means latest purchase price. So the word replacement means if I want to replace the existing material with another material, which is nothing but a latest purchase price. So if I go to the market and try to buy the same material today, it will cost me rupees 12 per unit. Let us assume that it will cost me 12 per unit if I go and buy the material today. See, historical cost was 10. But if I want to buy it fresh from the market, today's latest purchase price is 12 rupees per unit. That is called replacement cost. Now this will be relevant. When relevant? When this material is of regular use. Regular use means common use, right? I keep on using that material regularly in my factory, and consumption of this material will necessitate additional purchase. It means if I consume this material lying in stock on my new job, then I'll have to buy fresh quantity for some other job because that material is required even otherwise. Material is of regular use. Like for furniture manufacturer, plywood, Sanmaika, these are the items of regular use. So the item is of regular use, and if you consume the existing raw material for one job, you'll have to buy again the fresh quantity for another job, then the replacement cost will be relevant. So I will revise or quickly sum up. If some raw material is lying in the stock, first of all, it should be lying in the stock from previous purchase. Then only this is applicable. You will ignore the historical cost. Historical cost or book value is ignored as a sunk cost. It is irrelevant, so ignore it. Now either realizable value will be relevant or replacement cost will be relevant. Realizable value is relevant if material has no alternative use, and replacement cost is relevant if the material is of regular use. This will be required in decision making questions. Now we'll take up one more small concept, that is use of cost BEP in decision making. So let us quickly revise the concept of cost BEP, which is used in decision making between the two alternatives. When we have two alternatives available for doing the same thing, then we use the concept of cost BEP for decision making. Now these two alternatives are such that under one alternative, variable cost is higher, and under another alternative, fixed cost is higher. In one alternative, variable cost is higher, in another alternative, fixed cost is higher. Now we need to calculate a range between which one alternative is superior to another alternative. First of all, imagine a situation like you have got two machines, machine A and machine B. If in machine A variable cost is lower, so machine B variable cost will be higher. But in A variable cost was lower, then fixed cost will be higher, and here fixed cost will be lower. That is what always will happen. If both the costs are lower in alternative A, suppose variable cost is also lower and fixed cost is also lower for alternative A, then alternative A will always be superior than alternative B. You don't have to take a decision. So decision making is required where one advantage is with one option, another advantage is with another option. It means if variable cost is lower for A, the fixed cost will be lower for B. So one advantage and one disadvantage. In that case, we have to calculate a range between these two alternatives, and above that range one alternative will be superior, and next to that range another alternative will be better. So that is what the cutoff point we have to calculate. That cutoff point is called cost BEP. Now cost BEP is the point at which the total cost of two alternatives is exactly the same. Cost break-even point is that point where total cost under two alternatives becomes exactly same. Total cost means variable cost plus fixed cost. Variable cost plus fixed cost will become exactly same at a cutoff point, which is called cost break-even point. Now below the cost break-even point, suppose cost break-even point is 10,000 units. Then below 10,000 units, the alternative with lower fixed cost is better. And above that cutoff point, cost BEP, let us say above 10,000 units, the alternative with lower variable cost per unit is better. So cost BEP is your cutoff point which will cut the decision. Who is better between which range? Now let's take an example. I think the same example I might have given you in my regular batch also. Suppose we have to decide between purchase of two vehicles, and these two vehicles are, let us say, a scooter and a motorcycle. It means either you will buy a scooter or you will buy a motorcycle. Don't buy both. You have to select between the two alternatives for transportation purpose, either scooter or motorcycle. Now let us assume that annual fixed cost of a scooter is rupees 5,000. Annual fixed cost of a scooter for 1 year is 5,000 and variable cost is rupees 1.2 per kilometer. Those who are interested will write it down on a rough paper if you are interested, right? And if you have the rough page with you and pen with you. The fixed cost, annual fixed cost of a scooter is 5,000 rupees and variable cost per kilometer is 1.2. Now annual fixed cost of motorcycle. To run the motorcycle, whatever is annual fixed cost, like annual fixed cost will include depreciation, right, road tax, insurance, etc., which is fixed whether you use it or not. So that is rupees 8,000. But motorcycle is more fuel efficient vehicle, so variable cost will be 0.8 per kilometer. That is, variable cost includes mainly the petrol and oil. So variable cost per kilometer is lower. Now have you noticed in scooter fixed cost is lower, but in motorcycle variable cost is lower per kilometer. So one advantage with scooter, one advantage with motorcycle. Now one disadvantage with scooter is the variable cost per kilometer is higher. But with motorcycle, what is the disadvantage? Its total fixed cost is higher, or annual fixed cost is higher. So you have to always take these. One advantage, one disadvantage. Now with this example, we'll go ahead. So we'll calculate the BEP. Let us assume that annual distance traveled is n kilometers. Why I'm taking annual? Because fixed cost was annual. Please remember. If fixed cost is annual, the resultant answer of cost BEP will be annual. If fixed cost is monthly, the resultant answer will be monthly. So let us assume that annual distance traveled is n kilometers, at which total cost per annum is same for both the vehicles. So I am making an equation. For scooter, n kilometers into 1.2 per kilometer variable cost. So it will become 1.2 n is total variable cost. Plus fixed cost 5,000. So variable plus fixed cost is total cost for a scooter. For motorcycle, the variable cost per kilometer was 0.8. 0.8 into n kilometers. N kilometers we have assumed. So it will be 0.8 n total variable cost plus fixed cost 8,000. And both these costs will be exactly same at n kilometers. Then the n kilometer is called as cost BEP. That is what we discussed. Now we'll solve the equation. You can also solve it orally and we'll get the answer. So if you solve the equation, it will become something like this. And by further solving, you will get 7,500 kilometers per annum. So our answer is cost BEP is 7,500 kilometers per annum, at which total traveling cost of both the vehicles is same. It also means one vehicle will be better below 7,500 kilometers per annum, another vehicle will be better above 7,500 kilometers per annum. Now the same answer can be calculated through a shortcut formula. And the shortcut formula for cost BEP is the differential fixed cost divided by differential variable cost. In this question, it was variable cost per kilometer. So differential fixed cost divided by differential variable cost per kilometer, if you do, the answer will be in kilometers. If in other question, it is a differential variable cost per unit, suppose, then the answer will be in number of units. If sometimes the denominator differential variable cost is per hour, then the resultant answer will be in number of hours. That you can easily understand now. So in our example, it is differential variable cost per kilometer. So differential fixed cost divided by differential variable cost. Difference in fixed cost was this, divided by difference in variable cost was this, and you will again get the same thing, that is 3,000 divided by 0.4 and same 7,500 kilometers per annum. You are allowed to use this differential formula or shortcut formula also, and if you don't remember this, you can go by equation method. Now interpretation of this cost BEP is important. Now assume this is 0 kilometers and this is 7,500 kilometers is cost break-even point. Now between this range 0 kilometers to 7,500 kilometers per annum, between this range, which alternative will be better? And if you are planning to travel in a year more than 7,500 kilometers, then in this range, which alternative will be better out of the two alternatives? Have you thought about it? Recollect what we had discussed in the regular batch. So you are correct. Scooter is better below 7,500 kilometers per annum travel, and motorcycle is better above 7,500 kilometers per annum. So this is your cutoff point which cuts the decision. It means if you are planning to travel less than 7,500 kilometers in a year, then buy scooter. But if your expected travel is more than 7,500 kilometers in a year, then better you should buy a motorcycle. Buy either scooter or motorcycle, please remember. And the point is, alternative with lower fixed cost is always superior at a lower level, because that alternative has an advantage at the beginning. Starting advantage is with scooter, because if you remember, with scooter the fixed cost was only 5,000 even if you travel 0 kilometers. But if you would have purchased motorcycle and if you travel 0 kilometer, the fixed cost was 8,000. So you will notice at the beginning of the journey, the advantage lies with an alternative involving lower fixed cost. So when you calculate cutoff point, below that cutoff point or cost BP, alternative with lower fixed cost is better, and above that cutoff point, alternative with lower variable cost is better. Alternative with lower variable cost becomes cheaper above cost break-even point. So this is what we had discussed in the regular batch also, I think, with the same example. Friends, I think we'll stop here for the day. Some more discussion is left in the same chapter, that is chapter 6, which we'll be doing in the next lectures. So see you tomorrow, my dear friends. Right? We'll continue tomorrow with chapter 6 only. Okay, friends. Bye-bye.